All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Galen Pugh. I am the Senior Account Executive over here at Bizminer. Excited to be giving you the webinar here today. So today's webinar is going to be on Bizminer, which is an industry and market research database. I believe a lot of you have probably heard about or even used Bizminer in the past. If you have not, then you're probably using at least some sort of financial benchmarking tool, whether it be Bizminer or RMA or some other resource out there. So the main focus of today's webinar is really going to be what makes Bizminer different. So if we hop over to this next slide here, these are really today's webinar topics that we'll be covering. One, we're going to talk a little bit about granularity, both as it relates to the options surrounding our reports and the data itself, and how that can make a big difference when financial benchmarking. We're going to talk a little bit about the customization of our reports and why that's important. A big chunk of today's webinar is going to be a live demonstration. So I'm going to hop over to our web app and actually walk through the process of creating and accessing some of these reports. And at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about looking ahead and some of the things we have in store in terms of our product roadmap. Throughout today's webinar, I would encourage you to, pop in, ask questions along the way. If anything comes to mind, use the chat box and send me questions. I'll try to keep an eye on that as well. And I believe David, David's here with us. I think he's going to pop in at certain points as well and just talk about how Bizminer might be able to be used with some of the resources that are available through KVD.
Yeah. And let me just pop in here for a second.
Yeah.
Where this fits, and are you going to be talking about the market data or just the financial statement benchmarking stuff?
I'm going to focus mostly on the financial data, but I will take the opportunity to pull up the market report as well and show you some of the data points that are available through that.
Yeah. Some of you may be using value source software, either BVM Pro or Value Source Pro or Express Business Valuation, and where the financial statement benchmark data fits is in the financial statement comparison. So you can input those as a third source. Eventually, we're moving to be able to download this data directly, so you can just click a button and import this stuff into the software, and that will be coming relatively soon. We don't have a date yet, but we're excited about that, and we're excited about the new interface they have and the incredible amount of granularity and data that's available on Bizminer. So Galen, why don't you?
Thanks, David. I mean, you really hit the nail on the head with that. I mean, the biggest thing that differentiates Bizminer from some of the other resources that are out there is its granularity. And when I say granularity, I really mean granularity in two different aspects. So one is, let's go to the next slide here, the granularity of the report parameters. So what I mean by that is what the report is actually analyzing. You're able to select from over 5,000 industry segments, so you can really drill down to very specific subsegments. For example, instead of just restaurants, drilling down to like Chinese or Italian or steakhouses or mobile food trucks. So getting into those very niche industries. We also make our financial reports available for about 350 market areas. That includes the US, so that would be national averages. You can also go down to the state and the metro level. And with our market reports, you can go all the way down to counties, zip codes, and customizable market radiuses, which I'll show you later in today's webinar. In addition to that, we have up to 15 sales class options, which you can also think of as a revenue range. That way, when you're creating this report, you're analyzing businesses and getting benchmarks for businesses of a certain size. And what that all really means is that you're able to create a report with the ideal industry peer group, so that when you're doing these benchmarks, you're not just comparing your client to some broad national level industry that they fall within. It's really their ideal peer group. That screenshot that you see at the very bottom of this slide gives you an example of that. So instead of plumbing and HVAC at the national level, this one shows that the industry is plumbing and HVAC contractors in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. and it's only analyzing firms with between 1 and 2.5 million in annual sales. So again, really getting that ideal industry peer group because of the granularity of the parameters that are available. And here's just kind of a further explanation of that. So the industry coverage. So as I mentioned, over 5,000 industry segments. Over there on the left, it shows you that hierarchy that I mentioned when it comes to restaurants, going from even a 2-digit code, which we refer to as sectors like accommodation food services, and then drilling down all the way to a 6+6 subsegment, such as Moroccan restaurants. And what's nice about Bizminer is you can stop anywhere along that continuum. So if you do want to analyze, a very broad sector, you can do that. If you want to stay at a 6-digit, you can stop there, or you can drill all the way down to what is our proprietary NAICS code system. So what we do is we take the standard 6-digit codes, we start to add decimal points onto the end, all the way up to 6 additional decimal points. That way we can further break them down into those specific subsegments. And then the market area coverage. So I mentioned with the financial reports, we cover about 350 areas, US, states, and metros. With the market area, with the market reports, we actually cover over 41,000 market areas. So this would include counties, cities, so not just metros, but some of the smaller cities within the states, zip codes. You can actually have a combination of up to 5 zip codes, or customizable market radius. With all these different combinations, there's actually about 184 billion market area combinations.
So are the market
through the
areas
Bizminer database.
benchmarking data, Galen?
What's that?
For the 41,000 market areas, is that for the financial statement benchmarking data, or is that more the market data?
That is the market data. So the financial benchmarking, what we would call like the financial report, is about 350, a little over 350 areas.
Okay, I just think it's important that people, get that there's two different, sort of sources of data. One's financial statement benchmarking, the other one is the market stuff, and the market stuff has got some very interesting data in it, which I'm sure you'll go over. But I just want to make sure everybody's clear. It's two different data sets, and like Galen said, the financial statement benchmarking has about, I think, 350 different sort of geographic regions, but the market data has got this incredible amount of 41,000 market areas.
Yeah, yep. I appreciate you making that distinction. It really is two different data sets, and that will definitely become clear when we get into the live demonstration, go over to the web app. You'll see how they're separated out, and it's two different paths to kind of go down and create those different product lines. And then the next thing I want to talk about a little bit in reference to granularity is the granularity of the data itself. So the first aspect is the granularity of the parameters. So industry, area, sales class options, what you're doing when you're developing those reports. But there's also a lot of granularity within the reports themselves. So with the financial report, which has the benchmarking data, we have a 23-line profit and loss statement, which comes in both dollars and percentages, a 16-line balance sheet. We developed 36 industry ratios, which we separate out into 4 different categories. And we also develop sales and earnings multiples. We do have a screenshot there of the profit and loss statement that's included in our industry financial report. We will go into a little bit more detail into that when we do the live demonstration and actually pull up one of these reports. But you can see there some of the granularity that I'm referencing. Instead of just aggregating everything within a line item like operating expenses, we try to break it down into some of those more specific line items, such as officers' comp, salary and wages, rent, repairs, advertising, and cost of sales labor portion. That way you can get more accurate and more insight into those benchmarks that you want to be looking at with your client. And what I want to show on this page is just a little bit insight into why that's so important. So not only the granularity within the report, but the the granularity of the parameters. So one of the big things is, and this is what this is pointing out, is the local information. There can be a big difference between the same industry in one area of the country compared to another. What you're seeing up on the screen right now is a screenshot of plumbing and HVAC contractors. Sorry, let me back up a little bit. This is a screenshot of a portion of the financial report for plumbing and HVAC contractors, and it's only analyzing the sales class of 500,000 or less. So this exact same industry for both and the same sales class for both, but the market area is different. This top one is for the Philadelphia metro area, and the bottom one is for the state of Kansas. So all else being equal, except for the area, you can see how it can really affect the report. If we look at cost of sales for the Philadelphia area, you can actually see it's been increasing over the past 5 years, from about 50% in 2017 up to 56%. And conversely, in Kansas, actually the opposite looks to be happening. Cost of sales was up around 54% in 2017, and it's been declining down to a 46% in 2021. Oh, sorry. And we see that happening with a couple of other line items as well. Rent is increasing in Kansas as a percentage of revenue. It's decreasing in the Philadelphia metro area as a percentage of revenue. So just the difference in area, let's say from Kansas to Philadelphia, can have a big effect on the benchmarks of that industry. And you could say the same about the other parameters. So changing the sales class or changing even a closely related industry. The one that I use as an example is residential remodelers. So residential remodelers is a 6-digit NAICS code. You would probably be able to find benchmarks on that through many resources, but what Bizminer does is continues to break that NAICS code down into things such as fire and damage restoration. So even though they're within the same 6-digit NAICS code, they're pretty closely related industries. The financials for residential remodelers and for fire and damage restoration would probably be quite different. So that's the why it matters and the advantage of having those granular options within the Bizminer database. And finally, and you'll get a really good sense of this when I hop over to the web app, is your ability to customize these reports. What's really unique about Bizminer is that none of these reports are pre-made. So at Bizminer, we're not here analyzing and developing reports, and then you're simply paying to have access to those pre-made reports. You're actually, through our web app, interacting with the database and creating these reports based on your specific research needs. So you'll go through a process where you choose the industry, and our database goes out and filters the companies that are available within that industry segment. You're choosing a market area, you're choosing a specific sales range, and then you're creating a report and getting insight into those specific parameters that you selected. And then the final thing I want to point out here is kind of the flexibility of the data beyond the web app. So the new web app has a great interface, super easy to use, and develops great in-app reports, but it goes well beyond that. So if you want to download these reports as a PDF, that way you can integrate certain parts of that into like a value-added report, such as a valuation report. That's possible. You can also export it as a CSV file. David mentioned this a little bit, exporting it as a CSV to integrate into other tools. We'll be working towards more of an automated export here in the near future, and then also an API feed. And with that being said, we want to jump right into the live demonstration. Before doing so, any questions, anything that you'd like me to clarify about anything I've reviewed so far before we get into the live demonstration itself?
Ben, we have one question. Nate asked, what is the market data?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you'll be able to see that answered a little bit more clearly when we do the live demonstration. But basically, when we talk about the two main data sets that we have the financial data set, which is industry average profit and loss and balance sheet and ratios. And then we have industry market data. That's going to be more of who are your local competitors, what's the size of the industry, what's like the average and median sales of a business in that industry and area, some startups and failure rates and demographic information. So more local market trends rather than the industry financial benchmarks. Yep. But yeah, let's jump into it. And I think we'll be able to further clarify that when you see the database in action. So the two products that we'll be focusing on here today are the industry financial profile and the industry market profile. Let's start with the financial profile. So what you'll do is simply click on Start Researching. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the real benefits of Bizminer is that these reports are custom made. So this report has not been developed yet. It's going to be developed based on the parameters that you set. We also mentioned earlier the granularity of the parameters. So the first one that we'll be selecting is the industry. As I mentioned earlier, there's about 5,000 industry segments that you can choose from with this. And there's a couple of different options for selecting that industry. You can do what we call a drill down. So initially it lists the different sectors that are available. And as you click on them, it will start to drill down and show some of those subsegments. So for example, we could go down to specialty trade contractors, other specialty trade contractors, and even within that, we could go down to HVAC. Oh, sorry, HVAC is under building finishing contractors. But you can see what I mean. Other specialty trade contractors would get down into things such as waterproofing, artificial grass, pumping contractors, things of that nature. So that's one of the options. You can also feel free to type in an NAICS code if you already know it, or you can type in a keyword. So for example, if I typed in plumbing, we will go ahead and be presented with all the industries with that keyword in the title. Once the industry is selected, you can see your selection down here. The next option is market area. So with the financial report, you can choose the US if you want national averages, or you can go down to a state or a metro. So for example, we could choose, like Pennsylvania, and be presented with some metros within that. So let's go down to Philadelphia. Finally is sales class options. There's 4 aggregate options. So industry-wide would be the entire industry if you wanted industry averages. There's a small, medium, and large. And within that, if you click on those, there's more of a breakdown within. There's also a structure option. It does default to corporations and partnerships, but there's a sole proprietorship option as well. And time series is just an option between 3 and 5 years. Once you've made those selections, you can review what you've selected down here at the bottom. You can also see how many firms are being analyzed. So when we're looking at plumbing and HVAC in Philadelphia with sales between 1 and 2.5 million, got about 1,200 firms with a year-end average of 1.4 million. If everything looks good, you can simply go ahead and click Access Now. And the report will go ahead and develop. So it's going to take a minute for this to download, and then we'll get a little pop-up notification that the data is loaded, and we can go ahead and start to look through this report. I want to quickly pause, see if there's been any questions about the selection process itself.
No, we haven't had any more questions.
Okay, sounds good.
Oh, and wait, we have one. Ronald says it didn't show the most recent date.
Most recent date is through year end 2021. Yep, and we'll be updating it this winter through Q2 2022, and then in the summer of next year to year end 2022. So this report gets updated twice a year, every summer and every winter. We're always about 6 to 12 months behind the current date. So when we update, later this year, we'll be about 6 months behind the current date. Another question came in, I saw it just pop up. Can you choose more than one metro area? No, at this point you cannot. So the options are US, the state as a whole, or one of the metros within the state that's listed as an option. We are looking to be able to combine areas, both metros and states, to be able to create a region. So for example, if you didn't want to focus on just Pennsylvania, maybe you wanted to do more of like a Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, Jersey kind of larger area. We are looking into developing the capabilities to do that. Really the holdup with that is load times. Because these reports are not pre-made, it's actually pulling data and doing calculations live and on the go. We do have to take into account load times. Sometimes it just takes too long, it'll time out, it's just not feasible, but we are looking into ways to make that possible. And then a couple other questions came in. Could you go back and recreate it with a new metro area? Correct. Yeah, so you can always go back and create it again. So for example, I created this industry financial profile for Philadelphia. I can go back and create this for Harrisburg, for Pennsylvania overall, for Scranton, Pittsburgh, whatever the case may be, you can go back and make a change and create a new report. What we also see people do, not only for areas, but sometimes to combine multiple industries, is this information is exportable as a CSV. So you could export, let's say, this report for Philadelphia, then go ahead and pull it for Pittsburgh, export that, and you could combine the two in Excel. We see that being done most often when they want to combine industries. Maybe they're working with a client who is kind of in multiple industry segments. They could pull it for both of those, and then even weight them in Excel and combine the benchmarks. A couple more questions coming in. Is the Q2 most current annualized dollar values? Yes. So it's a trailing 12 months. So when we update it with Q2 2022 data, it will be a trailing 12 months, which will overlap with some of 2021. And as far as going back to a previous search, there's no like saved searches. You would just go back and recreate those parameters. It's really quick to do. So there's no like save search. You would just go back, choose plumbing and HVAC, change the market area, choose the same sales class. I believe I answered the questions. If not, and you need me to clarify, just feel free to let me know. But let's jump in and take a look at some of this. So to start off, we have about the data. This is where you can really kind of read a little bit about Bizminer. We do try to be very transparent about our methodology when it comes to kind of how we collect the data, some of the methods that we're using to analyze it. We talk about our quality control process, and also give a glossary of all the line items and ratios within this report. And finally is data. Definitely something I want to mention is the data sources. So Bizminer is using both public government sources such as the IRS, the US Census and BLS data. And then we're also using private statistical sources as well. So we're using in total about 15 different sources. What we do here at Bizminer is we collect raw data from these variety of sources. We clean it and analyze it, and then develop these reports from those data sources. We've been doing this for about 20 years. This financial report is our flagship report. Been producing it in this online version since the early 2000s. And it is very well vetted and reliable data. It's used by business professionals that rely on it for obviously valuations, litigation support, forensic accounting, used by the banks for commercial loan applications, and also by Canada Revenue Agency and the IRS itself. Let's get into some of the data. So the first section is just talking about the industry that was selected. So how many firms are being analyzed, and describes the industry that we're looking at and the hierarchy it falls within. And then the data itself, which is probably what you're most interested in. So what you're seeing here is the industry average financial statement. So income statement in both percentage and dollars. And here you can see, the full picture of it. In the PowerPoint, I had a little snippet of this particular P&L statement, but now you can see it in its entirety and all 26 line items. So really good breakdown of the operating expenses, 5 years of data, so you can see how it's been trending. We even have, a little trend line here that we show. Here's the years up top, and we're showing it in both dollars, or percentages and dollars. Also the industry average balance sheet, 16-line balance sheet, percentage, dollars. There are some charts throughout to go along with the data. And a sources and uses of funds table, which is kind of like a cash flow. And I do see I had a couple of questions come in, so let me pause for a second. Does the system evaluate if there is enough comparable data to be a reliable data set? For example, 1 or 2 entities at the most detailed granular level. Yes, we do. So we don't even make a profile an option unless there's 6 or more establishments that are being analyzed. And you can see the number of firms that are analyzed before you ever access the report. I'll try to point it out again if we do another one of these examples, but if you remember when I was creating this report, I chose the industry and the market area and the sales class. When I did that, there was a little loading icon that came up, and then it showed me how many firms were analyzed and the year-end average. So that's where you can really take a look at the sample size of this particular report. For this one, I think it was around, I want to say like 500. And it says that in the information section of the report when you download it. So about 500 firms are being analyzed. If you select options where there's not enough, it will have a pop-up notification. It'll say not enough firms, you have to change the parameters that you selected. And then there is another question. So the most recent date is really an amalgamation of various age data sources. Yeah, so yes, because we're analyzing data from a variety of sources, it's not always going to line up exactly in terms of the date. For example, like IRS and US Census data may not line up directly with the information that we're getting from some of the private statistical sources. So it does go through some algorithms and projections and the methodology that we've developed over the past 20 years. And another question, where do we get the data? So I did mention that right at the beginning of this report. The data is coming from both public government sources like the IRS and US Census, and also some private statistical sources. I also want to point out that no one data point in this report is directly from one particular source. So the final measurements that you see in any of our reports is really a combination of several resources working together. Let's hop back into the financials though. So we saw the industry average profit and loss statement and balance sheet. The other information that is available is financial ratios We developed 36 industry ratios, which are separated out into 4 different categories: cash flow, profitability, efficiency, and debt risk. And then the final area is sales and earnings multiples that we developed for the industry that you selected. All right, and I mentioned this a little bit during the PowerPoint presentation, but this is the in-app version of the report that we developed, but you can download a PDF version or export this as an Excel CSV file. What's also nice about the CSV export is that it keeps a consistent format. So even though this report is for plumbing and HVAC contractors in Philadelphia, if you were to export this report for, let's say, one you developed for restaurants in Boston, the CSV would still be in the same format in terms of certain data points being in a certain row and column. That way you can really automate and be standardize your process for exporting this data and then integrating it into an outside tool. All right, any other specific questions about this financial data while we have it open and looking at it? And David, anything that you wanted to mention about like the export or anything?
Sure. Today, you have to manually input this data into our software, but like I said, we'll be working with Bizminer and Galen to automate that process. So you'll be able to click a button on the software and download multiple years of this, income statement, balance sheet, ratio data into our app. So we're excited about that, and we'll announce that as soon as we have a date.
Awesome. Yep. Thanks, David. And here is.
But let me say this too. Like. Galen, I've always been intrigued by the industry data. I mean, today we don't really have for benchmarking the financial data. There's a pretty good body of knowledge. There's been a lot of experience in the valuation industry on using this stuff, applying it to valuations. The market data, hasn't been nearly as widely used, but I've always thought it's great data because you can see industry trends at a very detailed level. So instead of looking at, the result of financial statements, over a period of time and all the different granularities that you have it, the market data lets you see things like the number of firms, trends, employment, all that kind of stuff. So I encourage those of you that have not played with that data to look at it and see, how that works. Dave, I don't know if you have any comments, Dave Miles, on, market data and valuation.
Oh, Dave Miles is not here. I'm using his profile.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay, so Dave's not here.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, and quickly, just up on the screen, I pulled up that CSV version of the report we created, just so you could take a look at it. But yeah, pretty standard, exact same information, just exported to an Excel file. And we did have a couple of questions come in, I think. So kind of expanding on where's the data from? How do you get data on private companies? So yeah, a lot of that's anonymized. So there is private company that's included in some of the public government data, like the IRS and US Census data. It's just not, we're not reporting publicly on those individual companies, but they are included in the overall data set. And also the private statistical sources. So sources such as Data Axle, which I always describe as like basically a business directory on steroids. It has kind of names and contact information for companies, but also goes further than that with employment numbers and things of that nature, which we integrate into the data set as well for kind of cross-referencing and developing some information from that. So yeah, although we do have, actually, I would say the majority of the companies in our database are private companies. A lot of times the data is anonymized when we're collecting and analyzing it. We just know like the industry, the area that they're in. When we get into the market profile, you will see some individual company names, but it's simply saying the company name and where they're located, just so you can get a sense of like who your competitors would be locally. Another question from Charles Grigsby. Okay, Charles, familiar with that name. Are the earnings multiples always SDE? Yes, they are. The earnings multiples are based on sellers' discretionary earnings. Where does sales data came from for the market? So all the data for the multiples is coming from deal stats. Yep, I believe that has answered the questions. Let's hop back to the website itself, the web app. And let's go back to the homepage and let's pull up one of these industry market profiles. So David just mentioned how it can be useful to integrate some of the market data as well, just to see local trends. So let's pull one of these up and take a look at what he's referencing. So similar process for developing this, but only 2 parameters to set at this point. So we choose an industry and we choose a market area. Why don't we stick with the example of plumbing and HVAC contractors? So I'll just type in 238220 and make the selection. With the market area, this is the one that goes from the US all the way down to the zip code. So you will have some more options with this one. Initially, it has the standard options of all US or the 50 states. But if we go down here and choose a state, you'll see it'll do some calculations, and then it's going to present us with the cities, the counties, and the zip codes that are available within that state. Now we'll take a minute here. Probably shouldn't have chose Pennsylvania since it's such a larger state. It's got some more calculations to do. Should have dropped down there to Rhode Island, but okay, here we go. So we got the cities. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not just the major metros anymore. With the financial profile, it's only the metros. And that actually, let me comment on that really quick because it relates back to a question that came in, which was, how do you know what the sample size is? And how can you be confident in the sample size before you pull a report? That's the main reason why the financial profile is not available at as many local areas as the market profile. As you know, it's just harder to collect and analyze financial data on companies. So the sample size is smaller for those financial reports, and we're only able to do states and the major metros. The sample size just gets too small when you go down to the smaller cities and the counties and the zip code level. But with the market data, we have a larger sample size. And so we are able to get down to the smaller cities, such as like Chambersburg or East Stroudsburg in PA, down to the county and even the zip code level. So why don't we I'll do a county this time. I used to live in Lancaster County, so let's choose that one. So it'll do some calculations. So similar to the financial report, this is showing us how many operations are within those parameters. So we know what the sample size is before we pull it. If we're happy with the selections, we can go ahead and click Access Now. And again, it's going to take a little bit to download. The different sections of the report over on the left are going to be grayed out. And then we'll get a little pop-up notification when the data is loaded. And we can go ahead and look through it. Should come up here any second now. Have to sometimes be patient because it is, developing these reports on the go. All right, there we go. Got the indication that the data is loaded, and we can start to look through these different areas. I won't go through this whole report. It is a very in-depth report. When you download this as a PDF, I think it's over 30 pages long, so a lot of data in here. But let me point out some of the key metrics, especially as it relates to valuation work. One is competitors. So just getting a better sense of who your local competitors are and where they're located. So again, this is plumbing and HVAC contractors in Lancaster County, but you can pull this for any of the 5,000 industries that we cover and any of the 40,000 market areas from the US all the way down to the zip code. And it is an interactive map. So that's Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And you can zoom all the way down in on this and start to take a look at some of these drop pins. You can click on these, actually see the name of the company. And there's a list of those competitors over on the left. And it works both ways. So if I wanted to click on like Reynolds Heating and Air Conditioning, it would show me where they're located. There's also a table that just simply shows the overall numbers. So how many industry sites over the past 3 years. This report, I should point out, gets updated on a monthly basis. Right now it's through June 2022, and that is a trailing 12 months. We also like to break it down into firms, small businesses, startups, and branch operations. There's a little bit of narrative to go along with this. Another key metric in this report is market volume. So this is showing the overall size of the industry in terms of total sales. And again, what's cool about this is it's specific to this industry and area. So this is the size of the plumbing and HVAC industry in Lancaster County. And because we're showing 3 calendar years and a trailing 12 months, you can start to look at the trends. So this industry has been fairly consistent. Looks like it actually grew over the past 3 calendar years, but has decreased a little bit in the trailing 12 months. There's also average annual sales. So this is the average and median sales of a business in this industry and area. COVID impact data is interesting. Most of our data is always on an annual basis, but in this section, we break it down month by month, looking at employment and sales, see if there's been any big dips or spikes over the past 2 years. I believe we have now paused this, but you can look starting in March 2020 all the way through February 2022 is the last time we updated it. The tables can be useful, but I like to look at this chart at the bottom, which really shows more of a trend. This is pretty typical for plumbing and HVAC. They took a big hit in the beginning, but have bounced back and recovered pretty well, better than most industries. And again, I'm not going to go through all this, but employment numbers, so how many people are employed, average number of employment. I think productivity is a great section to look at. This is showing sales per employee data, both nationally and locally, average annual wage and rent per employee. I'll have to see why it's not showing up for 2020 and 2021. We should have that data. And we got some startup rates and cessation rates, and some population demographics for the area. So a lot of great local market trends that you can incorporate into your valuation work. Anything that you'd like to expand on this, David? Anything in particular that I may have missed?
No, I think, like I said, this information, there's so much information here. And like I said, the valuation community in general has not wrapped their arms around this kind of data and how it applies to valuation. But I think there's some great stuff. So like I said, I encourage people to, look at this data, some of the higher level kinds of things, and see if something jumps out for the industry. But the other thing that I think is so astounding about this is the level of granularity going down, from a state to a metro area to a zip code with this kind of stuff is it's pretty valuable.
Yep. Yeah, it all kind of goes back to that first topic that I talked about in the PowerPoint, which is granularity. I mean, that really is what we've built our reputation on is granularity of industries, getting down to those specific subsegments, granularity of market areas, going down to states, metros, counties, zip codes, those local areas. And then within the report itself, granularity, trying to give you as much detail within the P&L and the balance sheet and ratio analysis, and also in this market profile, showing you as much local market trends as possible. And what I'm downloading now, this is a separate download. Again, because of the download time, that's always something we have to keep in mind with Bizminer, is how long it takes to calculate some of this information and produce the reports. That's what has limited us in some of the things we want to do going forward. Hopefully we're able to, develop ways and different methodologies to make some of this available. But just like you asked previously, can you combine metros? We're looking for ways to combine metros and states to develop regions. What I'm downloading now is what's called a sector concentration. So up here in the next to where you would download the PDF and CSV, there's an option for sector concentration. This is a separate download because of the download time. We didn't want to hold up the main report, but this is a very interesting file as well. It's going to show the sector concentration for the area that you selected. So in this case, it's Lancaster County, and it's going to show us a table that basically shows, let's see if it develops. Yeah, so this is it. So this is showing the industry's percentage of the overall area's economy. So basically what percentage of Lancaster County's overall economy does the plumbing and HVAC industry account for in terms of number of establishments? So about 1.1%, employment, sales, the overall sales. And then there's a concentration table. So you can actually see like the largest sectors in Lancaster County based on the overall percentage of the economy. So we can see here, not surprisingly, this is the case in a lot of areas. Healthcare is one of the biggest industries, followed by, looks like retail trade, professional and scientific is a pretty large one, construction, but just, interesting information that you can find through this separate industry concentration file. All right, that's basically it. So we've covered the industry financial profile and industry market profile. I do want to point out, if you haven't used Bizminer before, it is free to set up an account. So you can come and register for an account, and that will at least get you into the web app. And you can come in here and look at sample reports. If you wanted to pull up a sample and really dive deeper into some of the data points that are available. I know I kind of went through a lot of this quickly and skimmed over some of the data. So I would encourage you to register for an account, go in here, download the samples, and really take a closer look at what's available. I'm also sure that anybody over at KVD team would be happy to talk about this information with you in more detail. But yeah, with that being said, we have about 10 minutes left in our scheduled meeting. I did want to leave this time just for a general Q&A, or if anybody wants to take a closer look at any of the information that we reviewed here today, we have some time here at the end.
Okay, and I just wanted to say, well, one, thank you, Galen, for making this happen. And two, this was a jointly sponsored webinar from both ValueSource and NACVA. So if anybody has any questions or wants to follow up, just call whoever your rep is at either NACVA or ValueSource, and we'd be happy to either answer questions or get you in touch with Galen, or help you figure out anything you need to know about Bizminer.
Yep. Thank you, David.
So does anybody have any questions? Just you can chat them in the cost. Melissa, what the two levels that we sell, how much are they?
Let me just take a quick look.
Yeah, I believe the two levels that you sell, are like $7.99 and
$7.99
$12.99
Yeah.
and $12.99, and basically like
You talk about the
seven.
download limits too for each one of those price levels.
Yep. Yeah. So the $7.99, we consider that really like the entry level subscription. That comes with 20 credits. So we call them credits, and you use one credit to access one financial profile. So for example, just so I can clarify on that, if you came here and you clicked on start researching for a financial profile, and you went through the process of creating one of these, let me just run through it real quick. So choose the industry, choose the area, choose a sales class. When you click on access now, it's going to do a little thinking first. Well, anyway, when it comes up and you click access now, that's when it uses one of your credits. So here we go. So we click access now, it gives you this one final confirmation. When you click on access now and the report downloads, that would use one of your credits. So that entry level package for $7.99 a year, that's a 12-month license, would give you 20 credits. You would use one of those 20 to pull this financial profile. Now, once you pull that, it's stored in your Bizminer account, and you can go back and download that as many times as you want, and it would only count as that one credit. But then once, if you went back and went through this process again and pulled it for a different industry or a different area, it would use a second credit. And then for the $12.99 package, you get 40 credits. So twice as many credits.
Somebody asked if this is included in Platinum. No, this is not. This is an add-on product to Platinum. Actually, this is not included in the levels, even Titanium. So you have to add this. But if you have Platinum or Titanium, you get a discount on Bizminer. I think. Is that true?
Somebody said.
Melissa, is that true to the Bizminer?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
David, it's RC reports, you get a discount.
Okay, so there is no discount.
No, there's no discount.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yep. Terry says, why does mine say starter? Yeah, so that entry level package is called the starter package, the one that comes with 20 credits. That one does only include access to the financial data. The next level package, which is the $12.99 with 40 credits, that unlocks access to the market data as well. Yep, so you would have to upgrade to this from the starter to the, I believe that's called the premium package. And yeah, reach out to your KVD rep. Yeah, it would just be as simple as paying the difference between the starter and the premium to upgrade. You would also get those additional credits. And here's where you can keep an eye on your credits for anyone who's currently on this webinar who has a Bizminer account. If you go to your My Account page up here in the upper right-hand corner and go down to Account Activity, it will actually show you how many credits you have available. So I started off with 200 for this demo account that I have that I use all the time. So it's showing me that I have 150 of those 200 credits left. It also shows you how many days in your subscription plan you have left, and some of your account activity down here at the bottom. Any other questions? All right. Well, I appreciate everybody's time. Hopefully this was helpful. And always available if you do come up with any other questions or just want to chat about the product.
And also, if you have any feedback on the product, suggestions, features you want to add, you can send them to me or Galen, and I'll forward them to him. But getting customer feedback in the valuation space is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Someone said, can I click upgrade to get the $12.99 package. Dan, how does that work if they want to upgrade?
Yeah, there's no way to do it through your account. So you would have to get in touch with either your KVD rep or us, depending on who you get the license from.
But let's have them call whoever, whether it's a NACVA rep or a value source rep. Let's have them go to the people they bought it from rather than you, because that just causes the confusion. So yeah, don't call Bizminer directly. Call whoever you got it from or whoever you came to the webinar from if you want to purchase it. But I think you can't just click upgrade. But if you call whoever you bought it from, they can help you upgrade and make it happen.
Yep, exactly.
Someone said I can't find my account.
Yeah, I can. I've taken a note down, Terry. We can get hold of you and figure that out.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why you wouldn't be able to see my account, but yeah, take a closer look at it. Get in touch with your account rep, and they can always reach out to us if there's some type of technical issue that's keeping you from that section.
Okay, I don't think we have any more questions. Thank you. Thank all of you for attending. And if you have any questions, you know where to get a hold of us.
Sounds good. Thanks, David. Thanks,
Thank
Melissa.
you, David. Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Galen.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.